Good afternoon, everybody. What's happening, everybody? Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. Major news out of New York City as the Trump administration is apparently jumping into this mayor's race in a very, very, very serious way. I think it is the wrong move, if I'm being totally honest with you, but apparently that makes me a bad person for saying so. Also, a big shakeup in the media over the course of the last several days, and we're going to talk about this shifting landscape and what all it exactly means for the mainstream media. You know, they say many times, people talk about this when someone is drowning, that you shouldn't jump in after them, because many times when people think they're going to die, they begin flailing about and may take you down with them. And I think that is happening in the media as we watch the final the final nail in the coffin to the mainstream media. We're going to talk about exactly why and what all is happening with that. Also, a left-wing dark money scheme is bubbling up as more and more information gets put out about this little fraud that they've been operating for the last several years. Very exciting stuff. But before we get to that, Chuck Schumer is speaking on the House floor, speaking outside the House floor, I should say, on the looming government shutdown, because now that Congress is back in session, we've got to hear about government shutdowns all day and night, even though the government never actually does shut down, as much as I wish it would, as much as sometimes I absolutely wish it would. But before we get into all of that, I want to give a big shout out to someone named Michael Bajadek. Michael Bajadek, who apparently doesn't like me. He made that quite well known on my Facebook last night. He doesn't like me. He watches all the other shows on LFA, but he made a point to go out of his way to let me know that he doesn't like me. Apparently, he doesn't like me because I badmouthed a local representative who is, if I gotta be honest with you, he's genuinely one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever met in my life. The man's name is Rob Trotta. None of you have ever heard of this man because he's completely and utterly irrelevant, but I just want to give a quick shout out to Michael Bajadek, whatever the hell your name is. You probably turned the show off already, but if you haven't, turn it off now. And then see if this face gives a shit. See if this face cares. It doesn't. Don't worry. Don't worry, sweetheart. Let's get rolling. Shout out to everybody watching across all of the platforms. Carolyn, how are you? AC Knight, Rose, how is it going? Larry and hi from Larry and Diane. Hello, hello, hello. Let's pop this live chat up onto the screen right here. Where are we at here? Boom, boom, boom. Let's giddy up. Let's go. There it is. Boom. Yeah, what's happening, everybody? I wonder if he's still in the live chat. I wonder if that guy who decided to badmouth me is still in the live chat. What are you going to do? The Mets have the bases loaded, and he got into a double play. Yes, of course. That is exactly what happens with the New York Mets. We love you, too. I love you guys, too. Very good stuff. So, Michael Bidajek, whatever the hell your name is, from West Hampton, I don't really care. There you go. There's your shout out, pal. So let's throw it over to Chuck Schumer, because I'm actually curious to see what he's talking about with this government shutdown. Obviously, the government needs to be funded by September 30th. They're going to need Democrat votes to get it. Here is, let's see, do I have him? Here is Senator Schumer talking about that. There we go.
Okay, hi everybody.
What an asshole.
Well, I hope everyone had a good break, and I want to thank Senators Murray, Klobuchar, and Schatz for joining me. Well, today we learned that Republicans are trying to rebrand their big ugly bill. This bill is so wildly unpopular because it's at its very core, it's devastating to American communities, and Americans are already feeling it. So they're running away from it. So instead of trying to actually address what's hurting families, what do they want to do? Change the name. Hello? Changing the name isn't going to restore somebody's Medicaid. Changing the name isn't going to have those premiums not go up. Changing the name is not going to open the rural hospitals who are closing and laying off people. So it shows what a bubble they're in. And you know, the fact that Donald Trump says a big, beautiful bill is cutting Medicaid is showing the American people just what his values are. And they're not the American people's values. So Americans know damn well that these cuts to Medicaid and to ACA, they are big, but they certainly ain't beautiful. The fact that Republicans think that Medicaid cuts are beautiful, as I said, reveals who they are to the American people. And about the average American, Donald Trump doesn't give a damn. He's in his own little bubble. He talks to his billionaire friends. They make him happy when they say, "Thanks, Donald, you're doing a great job. You're giving me a tax break." So
I got to be honest with you. I really thought that was going to be a hell of a lot better. Hey, Chucky boy, way to really inspire the troops there, my friend. It's pretty wild stuff. First off, no one's Medicaid is getting cut unless you're an illegal immigrant. So if you're an illegal immigrant, you don't want your Medicaid to get cut, go home. Go home. It's always so funny whenever Democrats try to curse. They have it's always so forced. Watch this. He doesn't give a damn. Look how edgy I am. Saying the D word. Wild. I thought that was going to be a hell of a lot more entertaining, but I guess it wasn't. Of course, later on in that interview, Chuck Schumer got asked about Zohran Mamdani and then ran away because Democrats are running away from Zohran Mamdani. Donald Trump, of course, is jumping into the fray in New York City, and I got to be honest with you, I don't know if he's making the right play. We're going to discuss that right now. Donald Trump's advisors, this from the Post Millennial, are apparently discussing giving Curtis Sliwa and Eric Adams jobs in the administration to clear a path for Andrew Cuomo to win, according to a new report. President Trump's advisors have discussed the possibility of offering New York City Mayor Eric Adams a position in the administration as a way to reduce the chances of Democratic Socialists winning the city's upcoming mayoral race. According to the New York Times, the talks have also included the idea of giving Curtis Sliwa a spot in the administration. The move would be aimed at boosting former Governor Andrew Cuomo's chances against Mamdani by clearing the field. I want to be very clear. This is the wrong way to view the New York City mayor's race. Mr. President, I'm a big fan. Let's be honest, I think I've made my MAGA bona fides well known. However, this is not the correct way to view this race. Kevin, what do you mean by that? In a head-to-head matchup, Andrew Cuomo does better than anybody else against Zohran Mamdani. Yeah, but he still loses. What has to happen is Sliwa and Adams need to drop out. Sliwa and Cuomo need to drop out. And everyone must take their medicine and vote for Eric Adams. Why am I saying this? Am I saying this because I like Eric Adams? No, of course not. I'm saying this because I can add. What does that mean? Well, some people are going to be very, very upset by this because many people view politics through the lens of emotion and not through the realm of rationality. Kevin, what are you talking about? Republicans are never going to vote for Andrew Cuomo. After the COVID lockdowns, after the nursing home issue, it's never going to happen. Democrats, by the same token, will never vote for anyone with an R next to their name. However, Eric Adams for all of his flaws and for all of his awfulness, can be sold as a take-your-medicine type candidate. Andrew Cuomo cannot be sold in that same way. Now, a lot of people are going to be very upset by this, and I'm purposefully not looking at the comments on this video for that exact reason. However, if you can show me, for the Republicans out there that want Curtis Lewa to win, and I would love to have Curtis Lewa as mayor of New York, I would. For the people out there who want him to win, do me a favor and show me a map where he gets 50%. Do it. Show me how that happens. Show me how somebody who got 27% of the vote last time magically acquires an additional 23%. Show me how that happens. I'd love to see it. I'm looking at maps and it's not there. Now that is not of course I have to stipulate this because everyone's going to lose their shit on me over it. This is not I like Eric Adams, and believe me, I'm sure my friend Sal Greco, if he's watching this right now, is probably throwing something at his computer screen. I'm not saying he's good. I'm saying he's the least bad option because Zohran Mamdani will win this race. And I got news for you. If you're sitting there saying, to hell with New York, to hell with New York. New York wants this, let them have it. I understand that. I do. Now, do I want to see my city die? Of course I don't want to see my city die. Of course I don't want to see my city die. But if this happens in New York City, if it happens in Minnesota, if it happens in the lieutenant governor's race in Virginia, which is all teaming up to be, it will come to a city near you. Maybe not this year. Maybe it'll come to a city near you next year, or the year after that, or the year after that. These sort of DSA radical Islamic candidates need to be stopped in their tracks. And anyone is better than Zohran Mamdani. I don't care who it is. You want to bring back Maya Dinkins? Bring back Maya Dinkins. You want to bring back Ed Koch, the guy who had an IQ of like 15? You want to bring him back? Bring him back. Anyone is better than Zohran. And I think the play they are making here is just incorrect, not from what I want, from a mathematical perspective. But Kevin, Curtis Lewa is out fundraising Zohran Mamdani. You're right. He is on an individual basis. Now add the $55 million that have been poured into this race by the Democratic Socialists of America, and then you tell me where the numbers come from. Where do they come from? You want to know the kinds of people that lose elections? Those who view it through the lens of emotion and not the numbers. Elections are not about principles, and they're not about morals, and they're not about personality. They are about addition and subtraction. That's it. Can you add more votes than the other guy? And if you can't, then you're not going to win said election. That's it. There's no two ways about it. I think they're taking the wrong stance, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be pissed off by that, but it's the rational take. It's the mathematical take. But that makes me the bad guy. That makes me the bad guy in some circles. What the hell? Wow, what the hell? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But I have a much more important story that I want to get to. Something that I think is actually really good news for Republicans and something that I think is going to change the media landscape as we move forward. It's big. It's really, really big because it's showing that the media is getting desperate. They are going out of their way to have Republicans on their shows and on their mainstream media shows. What all does that mean? Before we get to that, Old Glory Bang.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, figuring out this mayor's race is difficult, but do you know what's not? Switching banks over to the bank that supports your values, supports your privacy, and supports your liberty. Guys, head on over to oldglorybank.com and lock in some of those interest rates before Jerome Powell either loses his job or wises up. Guys, head on over to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com, and let them know that the loud majority sent you. They are a proud supporter of the show, and we are proud we are proud to have them, guys. Go to oldglorybank.com. It's oldglorybank.com. So, what am I talking about this new media sort of world that's been happening over the course of the last several weeks? Look, on this show a lot, I do it a lot. I show you Scott Jennings, okay? I show you Scott Jennings. He's out there. He's kicking ass. He's taking names. He's doing what needs to be done. But Scott is inherently a politico. What do I mean by that? Look, he's a political animal. He has been in this game for quite some time. He's worked for Mitch McConnell, and he's worked in the Bush administration. He's been there. He's an eloquent speaker. He goes out on television, and he makes fun of Tim Walz, and he says stuff like this, which, of course, grabs a lot of headlines.
You had an opportunity to ask the president today about this, and you did not. Why?
Well, because when he got on the phone and sounded very much alive, I thought it would sound kind of stupid, frankly, to ask an alive person if they were dead. But I'll tell you who is a complete piece of shit. I'm going to tell you right now.
There have been a lot of swear words at this
Tim
table today.
Walz,
Okay.
the governor of Minnesota, holding up a phone in front of a rally saying, well, we thought we were going to wake up and find out the president had died. Someday it'll happen. Someday it'll happen. I used to say he was the biggest buffoon in American politics, but it's worse now.
And look, yes, that is a great headline, and I love to hear it because Tim Walz is, in fact, the biggest piece of shit in politics for praying for the death of our president, regardless of how you feel about said president. I know that, and you know that Tim Walz is absolutely awful, and how very much we dodged the bullet from not having to sit through 4 years of the dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. If you guys haven't seen the Mike Crispy video making fun of Tim Walz, please go and see that. It's absolutely hilarious when Mike and Frankie make fun of Tim Walz. But it's not those clips that I think are having a serious, serious impact. Financially speaking right now, media they're in a bad way. Now, much of that is self-inflicted wounds because they've been so awful for so long. But people in the media are beginning to understand that if you want clicks and you want people to watch your show and you want to bring eyeballs, the best way to do it is to bring in right-wing podcast hosts. Now, we've seen that on networks like CNN before. They had my good friend Ryan Gradusky on there right before he was so eloquently fired for asking Mehdi Hassan whether or not his beeper was about to go off in one of the funniest clips I've ever seen. But we haven't really seen a lot of it until last night. Now, I'm going to be playing some clips of Ben Shapiro. Now, I don't really care if you like Ben, if you don't like Ben, if you think he's a shill for Israel, if you want to yell about the Jews. That's not what I'm talking about. Please don't do that because that makes you a dick. But, it's not really the point of the person, because I'm going to show a second person in just a little bit. It is the quality of the arguments in which they put forth. Because when there are right-wingers on mainstream media, it's normally the Chris Christies and the John Boltons and the people from the Lincoln Project, like Steve Schmidt. Very rarely is it people from what I have been dubbing the new right, the sort of young podcaster who made their bones on the internet. We've seen it a little bit with, people like Jillian Michaels and Kevin O'Leary, but still they're not really in that same sort of realm. When I talk about the new right in media, I'm talking about the Bonginos and the Shapiros and the Crowders and Patrick Bet-David, many people of the new, myself. If CNN would like to have me, just know I am available. It is the kind of argument that these people are putting forth that no one who watches CNN, nobody who watches mainstream media has ever heard before. For example, here's just one example of how the media treats the idea of crime. And if they wanted to have an honest conversation, what they could actually do about it. And Shapiro, who I've heard make this argument a million times, this is the first time people on CNN have heard this kind of an argument.
What is to stop that, Ben?
I mean, I think that, to be fair, the exertion of more power by the executive branch has been an ongoing process for the course of the last 20 years minimum. And you saw the Obama administration declare national emergencies, something like 12 national emergencies under President Obama, something like 9 under Joe Biden.
Now, the way Shapiro debates here is important. Why? Because he's sitting across debating a former member of the Obama administration, a rational Democrat. Some might say Van Jones. Let's watch the reaction of Van Jones as Ben Shapiro makes a very clear and concise claim on what can be done about crime in Chicago.
What is to stop that, Ben?
I mean, I think that, to be fair, the exertion of more power by the executive branch has been an ongoing process for the course of the last 20 years minimum. And you saw the Obama administration declare national emergencies, something like 12 national emergencies under President Obama, something like 9 under Joe Biden. Now you've had President Trump declare a wide variety of national emergencies. This isn't a unilateral problem. I think it is a bilateral problem. With that said, I think that we should separate a few strands here. One is the legal that Eli was talking about. One of the other things here, though, is I think what Van was referring to, which is President Trump does have a habit of wrong-footing his political opponents in a unique way on this sort of stuff. There were 574 murders in Chicago last year. And you can make the argument, I think a plausible argument, that National Guard troops should not be on the ground enforcing crime, both legally and just as a matter of general policy. But if the position you end up taking is that there is no serious crime emergency in Chicago on a rhetorical level, not on a legal level, on a rhetorical level, or you make the case that actually crime in Chicago just isn't that big of a deal, which seems to be the mistake that many Democratic politicians are making right now, Trump is going to win that battle all day long.
I mean, I hear you, but I also think there is the rhetorical level, which we could focus on. But I mean, I also want to focus on the reality, like the actual things that are happening. And even to that point, I mean, voters are not, I think we treat voters as stupider than they are. Mm-hmm. You ask them in polls and they say, we think crime is a problem. We don't like the way Trump is handling it in the way that he is sending the National Guard. They want Trump to do more about crime. They don't necessarily want him to send troops to cities. So voters can handle these topics.
Now, obviously, you just heard Abby Phillip give a completely emotional argument. She says that voters say. Voters say. Now, this is what rich people do. They cite polls, and they don't actually go outside and speak to, humans, which is what a lot of these podcasters are going to do. That's the first time people on CNN have ever heard the idea that maybe, just maybe, there is a different tack to take. We showed it on yesterday's show of Joe Scarborough on MSNBC doing kind of the same thing. If they wanted to have a serious conversation about crime in our major American cities, they would admit that there is a problem first, which there very clearly is. You see, because what President Trump has done, and he will always win this argument, and this is why he's different. This is why he's different. He is different because he admits there's a problem. For a long time, that's not a big deal. It's nothing to worry about. Oh, the national debt's not an issue. Oh, crime's not an issue. the fact that people are living exceptionally longer on Social Security, and because of that, they're extracting a hell of a lot more from Social Security than they ever put into it in the first place, that's not a problem at all. Sure, the math doesn't add up whatsoever. He admits there's a problem. And then he makes Democrats pretend there isn't, because if Democrats came out and said, yeah, there's a problem in Chicago, I just don't like the way that President Trump is handling it, the rhetorical answer to that would be, okay, what's your solution? And of course, they can't allow that question to be asked because they don't have an answer. Because if they had an answer, they would have done it already. Like the question of Social Security. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks, who I think is incredibly talented and definitely among the new age Democrats that we're going to have to fend off for quite some time, also debated Shapiro on the idea of the national debt. Naturally, she blamed Israel because that's all Democrats know how to do is blame Israel, but
Hard jobs, they're on their feet.
It depends on what job.
I'm not saying working back-breaking labor and your leg is falling off that you should be.
I mean, by the way, I just totally reject what you just said about how we're going bankrupt due to Social Security. Really, you don't think like the trillions of dollars we've spent on wars in the Middle East might have something to do with that?
It is not even
our
remotely a
national
percentage
debt.
of what we spend on Social
Our
Security.
national debt shot up significantly after 9/11, after we started invading countries in the Middle East.
You should look at a chart of
Now
our
we're at
national
30.
debt. In 2008,
we're spending
it went
hundreds of billions of dollars on Israel, on Ukraine. I mean, honestly, these foreign conflicts have a lot more to do with our national debt as
hell they
opposed
do
to
by the
us
numbers.
paying
That is
into
just
the
untrue.
Social
You
Security
think
system.
Israel is a bigger portion of our budget than Social Security, Medicare,
I think we
Medicaid?
spend way too much money on
just asking as a
military
mathematical
aid for
numbers
foreign
thing.
countries.
You think
Absolutely.
Israel is more
Do
than
you
Social
think
Security?
that Social Security is more of an issue compared to how much money we just shell out for conflicts abroad?
As a matter of
Look,
expenditures and math,
that
yes.
both entitlements and defense.
now I want to be clear. I'm against foreign aid. I'm against all forms of foreign aid. But as a simple matter, 68% of the federal budget goes towards Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Why? Because people are getting sicker than ever before, and people are living longer than ever before. We have less people putting into the Social Security pot and way more taking out. So when Anna Kasparian says, look after 9/11, you saw the national debt skyrocket. She's right. She's right. Our foreign entanglements have absolutely led to that. But do you know what else happened after 9/11? All the baby boomers retired. And because they retired, they stopped putting as much into Social Security and began taking out of it. Now, that's a promise that we made to them. And I understand that. And it was a Ponzi scheme when FDR set it up. And it's a Ponzi scheme today. Facing that reality is the only way we are going to be able to secure a future of this program. Yes, the drip, drip, drip of the stuff we shell out to Ukraine and to Israel is absolutely contributing to the national debt. But there is no way a person can say that the 2% of our GDP that we spend on foreign aid is the same as 68% of the federal budget. That's the first time that argument has ever been made on television. Now, I've heard Ben and Anna make this argument to each other before. And believe me, it gets better and better. There's a debate between the two of them, I want to say a couple of years ago, on that topic. But it didn't stop there. They talked about tariffs. They talked about the fact that it seems like Democrats were okay with the policies of FDR. See, if you're on the American left, you think that FDR is like this end-all be-all, that he was the gold standard and he did all of this and the public works project. Actually, many historians believe that FDR actually extended the Great Depression by a great many number of years following his New Deal policies, and that the only thing that actually dragged us out of the Depression was the Lend-Lease Act in 1940, I believe it was, when we began shipping and selling weapons overseas. We didn't just give it away for free. As a matter of fact, the United Kingdom continued to pay back their debts from the Lend-Lease Act all the way up to 1985. And if we were doing that now with Israel and with Ukraine, I would have no problem with it. I have no problem being the arms dealer of the world, so to speak. You want to have your war? I don't give a shit. You want weapons from the United States? I don't blame you. However, I don't think we should just be giving it away to whoever knocks on the door first. Here they were discussing FDR tariffs.
Pictures around. It was about patriotism. It was about trying to get people excited about what could happen in this country. This president is trying to raise money by putting tariffs on our adversaries and allies alike in ways that don't make any sense. There is
the FDR
nothing.
administration oversaw some of the largest tariffs in American history.
Nothing
and
in
FDR
common.
spent most of his administration ripping on what he called the malefactors of great wealth. So trying to provide.
We're still living off of a lot of the public works of that administration. I wish we were building highways.
Why are you against what Trump is doing? Because he's doing a much lesser version of what FDR is.
No, Trump has, again, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Let me give you an example.
So he's an incompetent.
Shipbuilding.
But if you were competent, it would be better.
Well, you're just, this is rhetoric, but shipbuilding is a great example.
Oh, this is rhetoric. Everything a person says on television is rhetoric. That is the essence of talking on television. But, random lady who I don't know who she is, she's never had these points argued back at her. These are the first time that these audiences are hearing these sorts of things. And why is this happening? Why is this happening? Because the media is on their last leg. Because they're not getting clicks. Because they're not getting, YouTube revenue. The only people that watch Abby Phillips' show are people like me so that we can cut Scott Jennings clips so that I can play them on my show the next day. It's not must-see TV the way, The Five is. 5 o'clock, people put on The Five, the way Tucker used to be when he was on Fox. It just isn't anymore. So what are they doing? Why am I showing you all of this? Why does it matter? Because as the media gets more and more desperate for ad dollars and for eyeballs on their screens, they will begin bringing in bigger and bigger names. The problem is they're running out of names on the left. If you watch this show, you know. How many times have I flippantly made the joke that they're just pulling in random people off the street to debate Scott Jennings? That's what they're doing. So now you have, on that show, I don't know who that lady in the blue was, if I'm being totally honest with you. But now you have the host of the largest left-wing podcast, The Young Turks. And you have the host of one of the largest right-wing podcasts. Now, once again, I'm not even looking at the comments. Go ahead, yell about Israel. That's just, apparently, that's just what people do now. They just yell about Israel. Apparently, you can make a shit ton of money on X just yelling about Israel. Shapiro's a shill for Israel. All right, let's move on. I don't really care. That's not the point of this. People are starting to see that capitalism is starting to pay off. That if you bring the biggest names in the world, who the media has gone out of their way to ignore for the last decade. Ben Shapiro's had a show since 2014. I've seen him on CNN 3 times. Anna Kasparian has never been welcomed on a show like this. Crystal Ball, who I show all the time, who I'm going to show later in the show, was fired from MSNBC. An actual progressive, a person with actual ideas, who thinks that the government shouldn't be there to enrich themselves and should actually do shit for the people. Now, I don't agree with her, but at least she stands for something, which is a common thread when you watch this show. I say it all the time about people like Zoran Mondani. I think he's dangerous, but at least he believes in something. I don't know what Andrew Cuomo believes, other than the fact that he ought to be ordained as mayor of New York so that he can leapfrog his way into a presidential run in 2028, which is exactly what he's going to do. Actually ordained, so now you're beginning to get shows that are based around right-wing personalities. You're getting them all over the internet. In just a second, I'm going to introduce you guys to a show called Jubilee, which I think is, I think it's actually one of the dumbest shows on the internet. But does it get traffic? Are the eyeballs on the people? Oh, yes, they are. Before we get to that, here's Jeremy.
Hey everyone, sorry to barge in like this, but I do want to talk to you about this opportunity for 45% off of Everyday Dose coffee. And this isn't just your regular coffee, folks. If you're like me, you love your coffee routine. I've loved my coffee routine since I was probably 16 years old. Unfortunately, as I've gotten older, some of the coffee that I love doesn't love me back and does cause bloating, does cause jitters, can only drink so much a day, and there's really only so much I could do with it. Now, Everyday Dose is known as Coffee Plus Benefits. And what I mean by that, folks, is A, there is an ingredients booklet in there that gives you a ton of different recipes on how to make cold brew coffees of all different kinds, lattes, different hot coffees, and more. But the greatest thing about Everyday Dose is it is known as Coffee Plus Benefits, meaning that you're going to have 100% Arabica coffee, and you're going to also have lion's mane, chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics that keep your brain focused. No jitters, no heart palpitations, and a ton of different recipes. And you're going to get a frother, a tumbler, a box set with a bunch of different gifts in it, an ingredients booklet for recipes, coffee, and more for only $27, folks. 45% off by going to everydaydose.com/LFATV. That's everydaydose.com/LFATV. Why not expand your experiences with coffee? That's everydaydose.com/LFATV.
So now I'm going to introduce you guys to a show called Jubilee. Jubilee, it's an interesting concept. I don't really like the premise of the show in and of itself, but I'm going to introduce you guys to this. What it is they take one person, a big name. They've done it with Charlie Kirk, and they've done it with Sam Seder on the left. They've done it with Cenk Uygur. They've done it with Ben Shapiro. They've done it with Patrick Bet-David. And they brought Patrick Bet-David in to expose the lies that capitalism is a problem. And we are finally beginning to get what we have been missing in the public domain debate. Believe me, I would love to get left-wingers on this show. They won't come on. They won't come on. They won't come on shows like this one. They won't go on shows like Tim Pool. They won't go on any shows like that. So what do? On this Jubilee, they set people up by giving 20 people the opportunity to come in and debate one guy. It's almost like me debating the Smithtown Democrats. Unfortunately, they don't have 20 people in their entire party to debate me. So Patrick Bet-David sat down with the people over at Jubilee. And he sat down with a young girl who was discussing the fact that capitalism is the reason why she is mentally ill. Odd premise, I know, but here it is.
Clip.
I'm also mentally ill, so that was something I had to deal with. But I'm mainly mentally ill because I am disabled in a capitalist country.
Tell me more about mentally ill.
Now watch what Patrick does here. Watch how he exposes her brand of bullshit.
Qualified you as somebody that's mentally ill?
Me and my doctor team.
Who convinced you that you're mentally ill?
Me and my doctor team.
What's the specific category of mental illness? Is there one? You know why I asked this question? Let me explain to why I asked this question.
So I don't even like the psychological industry. I don't really stand for like Sigmund Freudian politics or anything like that. I don't have access to even a result or a solution to my disability as someone with a connective tissue disorder. It's genetic.
Have you been able to go to different doctors and get yourself tested? And
yeah.
See? You have?
Yes.
And in California?
Yes, but not enough. I can't find a specialist.
You can't find a specialist?
I can't find a specialist for who I am.
Is there anyone in your life that's willing to pay for the specialist?
Well, they could or they would if they had money, but yeah.
Would you be okay if I pay for a specialist for you to go see?
Yeah.
Would you take money from a capitalist to help you go see specialist?
I mean, yeah, sure, why not?
Now watch this. Would you take money from a capitalist in order to go see whatever sort of specialist you want to see? How quickly do you think this is going to take a left turn?
Have you go see two, do you live in California?
Yeah.
I'm going to have you go see two specialists, but would you also be open to seeing somebody else I choose as a psychologist that may...
No.
The reaction
you choose as a psychologist, you're choosing who gets to determine what my mental health looks like. No.
Okay, then I wish you nothing but the best. Okay, so here's a reaction. Here's a reaction. Let me show you a reaction.
So many
to
things to say.
Here's a reaction.
Okay.
I was kind of scared of the Jubilee.
She looks better now.
comments, and then I realized that the only people who are criticizing me are capitalists, so it makes it really easy to laugh at them. Their only gotcha for me is that I'm disabled and mentally ill. Good one, guys. And I have a septum piercing.
She's definitely mentally ill. I'm
think-
going to go out there on a limb and say that she's actually mentally ill.
I
and
agree
feel
with
for-
you.
I feel for her.
Yeah.
But it is kind of weird. It is kind of weird though that you're like as if you were gonna find a psychologist that's gonna be a different. Like no, I just want to find out what's the mentally ill because I mean we're all kind of a little crazy. But
I'm
I wanna
doxing her parents. Sue me.
Can I make one point?
Yeah.
If these kids are for communism, what makes them think they get to pick their own medical experts? Has anybody been to Canada? Not that it's communist. I'm just saying,
That's a
like,
good point.
socialized medicine, like, you don't pick your doctor. It's a disaster. You get who you get. I'm confused. Does she even understand what she's fighting for? She's not going to let you pick the expert. But in any socialized medicine, you are given what you're given, period.
Do you think?
Now that's the point. That's the point. The more we are able to break into their worlds, the more and more desperate they're going to get. For example, here's another clip from Jubilee of PBD, and I'm a huge fan of PBD. You guys know that if you watch the show. My good friend works over there. Watch him debate some girl on communism.
This one, I offered her
That's my
to
favorite.
renunciate her citizenship, and she wasn't too happy about it. Go ahead.
To be free, but that's why I'm anti-capitalist.
Well, maybe you ought to
That
move
is
to
why
North
I'm
Korea or
anti-capitalist because
Cuba or
capitalism
Venezuela.
removes that choice. There is no real incentive of capitalism because the incentive is survival.
if I
when
were
you get
to-
into communism, the incentive is for the common
I
good.
love that. I got an offer for you before we move on. If I were to give you your $2,350, which is the cost to renunciate your citizenship, and I paid you your first class, flight to whatever communist country, and $20,000 to spend
Name me a
money,
communist country.
would you give up your citizenship
Name
to go
me a
to that
communist country and I'll move
Whichever
out there.
communist country you want to go to.
yeah,
Cuba,
name-
we
that's
can
not
give
a
you
communist
Venezuela,
country.
we give you North Korea, any one of those you want
Those
to go
aren't
to.
communist countries. Not
Choose
even.
any one of them. I'll give you a one-way ticket, and I'll fund it for you if you want to.
That's it.
Well, even voted.
I like to be.
She couldn't name a communist country. Okay, so I'll give you the list. Go.
So this is the point. Many people will say this to me all the time. Kevin, why do you even want to go on left-wing shows? Because, look, the people sitting in that room, their minds are not going to be changed. They're not. They're stuck in their ways. They're not all that bright. But do you know whose mind might be changed? Might be changed? One of your kids who's watching it. That show is exclusively on YouTube. And kids occupy that space more than anywhere else on digital media, on television, anywhere. The more we can break through into that world, the better off we're going to be. And the media is getting desperate. They are getting desperate, which is why they're having shows based on right-wing podcasters, which is why CNN is having on guys like Ben Shapiro. And it's the same reason why dark money left-wing billionaires are now paying half a retards on the left up to $8,000 a month to push whatever narrative they want pushed. We'll get to that in 1 second. Before we do that, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. That is the best way to support this program and everything we've got going on over here. I can't tell you, I just found out today how many of you guys have signed up to become monthly donors over at the Loud Majority, which you can do by clicking that donate button at the very top of the screen. I cannot tell you how much that means to me, but if you'd like something for it, why don't you guys check out the shop, baby? Oh, yeah. You guys can get this very same. I voted for this. shirt that I am currently wearing right now. Look at that bad boy. I voted for this. I keep being told by the left that I, in fact, did not vote for this, when, in fact, I did. You guys can check that out today. Go to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Click that shop and use promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. So what do I mean? Well, for any of you who may be on X, and I know a lot of you are. I know a lot of you follow me on X, and I really do appreciate that more than I can describe. I'm like 1,000 away from 50,000 followers on there, and quite frankly, it's bothering me that I'm not at that round number. X Sean, he'll tell you about that. But have you guys ever noticed on X, it seems like all the left-wing accounts always seem to say the same things. They always seem to say the same things at the same time. Well, that seems odd, doesn't it? Well, it turns out, of all people, Taylor Lorenz, one of the worst reporters in all of news, has broken a story for Wired magazine that it turns out that the majority of them not only are being paid, but are being told what to say by a shadowy left-wing group. Here is Crystal Ball at Breaking Points breaking this down.
Graham, funded by a Dem-aligned dark money super PAC called the 1630 Fund. So let's put her reporting up on the screen, and I want to break down very specifically what she reports out in this piece. So her headline here is, a dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. So the TLDR here is that this incubator named Chorus was set up by Brian Tyler Cohen, who you guys probably know is a big resistance creator on YouTube, giant channel, 4 million subscribers, etc. And a guy who used to be an aide for John Yarmuth, who was a congressman from Kentucky. So they set up this thing. And the way they fund it is by taking money from this billionaire-backed dark money super PAC called the 1630 Fund. That fund has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to back Democratic candidates and causes. It's very influential. It's very well known. You can read a bunch of reporting about it. But because it is a dark money group, their donors are kept a secret, okay? So 90 plus Democratic Party aligned influencers were selected for this program. They're paid anywhere from $250 a month, which y'all are really selling out for the cheap if you're on that plan, but we'll get back to that, all the way up to $8,000 a month. It has everybody from small creators I certainly had never heard of. Granted, I'm not on TikTok that much, so I'm not trying to besmirch the level of their influence. But all the way up to people like David Pakman, who has a multi-million sub channel, who is already been quite successful and has been around for longer actually than we have. David Pakman's been in this game for a long time. So it's everybody from the small and the brand new all the way up to the David Pakmans of the world. So specifically, Taylor was able to talk to people who were approached about participating in this program, some of whom were put off by the terms of the contract and said, this is not something that I can be a part of. She was given access to some of the group chats that were flying around between some of the people who did end up in the cohort, who were also expressing concerns about some of the terms of the contract. And she also apparently was able to get her hands on the contract themselves. And so here's specifically what the contracts that it says were viewed by Wired, what they indicated in terms of restrictions on the way these individuals can operate. So according to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. Creators also have to loop Chorus in on any independently organized engagement with government officials or political leaders. So one of the creators who was approached about participating in Chorus said to Taylor, she said, quote, if I want to work with another politician, I have to fully collaborate with Chorus. If I get Zoran and he wants to do an interview with me, I don't want to give that to them. So that was one of the concerns. Also, it says creators in the program are not allowed to use any funds or resources that they receive as part of the program to make content that supports or opposes any political candidate or campaign without express authorization from Chorus in advance and in writing per the contract. So if they want to support a candidate, Graham Plattner, let's say in Maine, they have to get approval from Chorus before they can say anything supportive of any sort of candidate or campaign. In addition, the contracts reviewed by Wired prohibit standard partnership disclosures, declaring that creators will not publicize their relationship with Chorus or tell others that they're members of the program, quote, without Chorus's prior express consent. A screenshot from a slideshow was shared with Wired following this article's publication by Graham Wilson, a lawyer working with Chorus, that offers several talking points if a member of the cohort wanted to discuss Chorus publicly. So they're expressly saying, you can't talk about being in this program and certainly can't disclose the dark money funding of this program. They also forbid creators from disclosing the identity of any funder and give Chorus the ability to force creators to remove or correct content based solely on the organization's discretion if that content was made at a Chorus organized event. One other piece that I thought was really noteworthy, Sagar, is it also says you are not allowed to criticize any of the other influencers who are part of the Chorus program. So, for example, if you have a beef over David Pakman either not saying anything about Gaza or in the early days of the genocide, he was actively defending Israel. If you have a problem with that and you're an influencer in this cohort and you want to talk about it, you are banned from doing that. So you have a combination of a lot of restrictions on the way that you operate, having to run things through this Chorus program. You have the forced.
Now, why do I show you that? There is so much to unpack there. I'll use this network as a sort of side-by-side, okay? I'll use this network as a sort of comparison. I have never been told what to say on this network by anyone, by Jeremy. I've never been, my ad reads on here, My Pillow, Old Glory Bank, has never told me I can't do A, B, or C. If I get an interview on here, I'm going to be on Pete Santilli's show right after this. I don't have to run it by the network or run it by the sponsors. People have me on their network or they sponsor this show because they believe in the product, because they believe in the views. And no one has ever told me that I have to, alter my views on a certain thing. Nor would I ever agree to such terms as that. No self-respecting, I don't like calling myself a reporter because, let's be honest, I kind of just talk shit on the internet. But no self-respecting reporter would ever agree to such terms. But many of the left-wing influencers you see on X are quite literally being told what to say and when to say it. How do I know that? Let's finish off that clip.
Graham.
Alternative medias.
These daily messaging meetings he was actively defending Israel. If you have a problem with that and you're an influencer in this cohort and you want to talk about it, you are banned from doing that. So you have a combination of a lot of restrictions on the way that you operate, having to run things through this Chorus program. You have the forced secrecy around it, that you're not allowed to disclose Chorus, and you're certainly not allowed to disclose the funding source of Chorus. And then you also, on top of that, have these requirements that they check in, that they go to these daily messaging meetings to, get the view of Chorus. And we're going to show you some of the responses from the creators themselves about the revelation that they're part of this program. And, they actually affirm that, yes, much of this is in fact true. They show relevant parts of the contract and then, give reasons why it's not such a big deal and it's not really a problem. But they actually confirm Taylor's reporting here. So this seems pretty rock solid at this point.
Well, okay, so let's put that aside. I think the question is about why is this important? I think it's important not only for the context of what you laid out about specific issues, but it is an incentive and media ecosystem, which is so much worse than allegedly what the Dem and Republican alternative medias were trying to go after. Like, look, we can say a lot of bad things about Jake Tapper, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. They do not get direct checks cut to them. that specifically say you can't criticize X, Y, and Z. They are actually less controlled in this particular way. And so that's what I think. I wanted to cover the story early, and I want people to grapple with that, is that in this new ecosystem, just like in the original days of the printing press, it's gone wild.
Sticker Mule is the fastest and easiest way to order.
All right, there was an ad there. It has gone wild. These people are actually more controlled than mainstream media. What do I mean by that? Well, before we get to that, if you have to run everything by somebody, if you're being told what to say and when to say it, and you have to get pre-screened questions by individual candidates, you don't think the organization that's setting that up is taking in donations from those candidates? This is a campaign finance violation in and of itself. If I'm running for Congress, and who's in the chat right now that I know? Let's see. Who's in the chat that I can use right now? All right, Natalie. We'll use Natalie. If Natalie wants to support me, she can give me, I think it's $1,160 for a congressional race. But let's say she wants to give more, and I have a certain point that I want to be brought up. What Natalie could do is she could donate to this shady organization, and then the shady organization pays their merry band of social media influencers the money to pump out the message. That's insane. That is a direct campaign finance violation. It's a crime, what they're doing. On tomorrow's show, I'll show you Brian Tyler Cohen's response to this. I'll show you Brian Tyler Cohen's response to this because, to be honest with you, it's actually hilarious. It's actually hilarious. What he claims is, and what it very, very clearly isn't. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for the update on that one. Guys, it's 4 o'clock. Pete Santilli is coming up next. I think I'm going on with Pete, actually. Let me see. Yes, I'll be going on with Pete right after this. So apparently, you guys just can't get enough of me. Guys, I'll see you in a couple minutes. Until then, everybody, stay loud.